What's up, people? Welcome to a tips and tricks episode. Over the past 5 or 6 years, I've been playing Minecraft and I've really started to focus on to improve my building style. And today I will be showing you guys a few of those tips and tricks that I've learned to really bring out the detail in your world. Jumping straight into the first tip here, we have block palettes. It's very important to set out the block palette when you are going to build a house or a building in Minecraft because it really gives you a good idea of what you're going to be using when building it. And you want to make sure all the blocks blend together very nicely. In front of me here are a few of my favorite block palettes, starting off with coarse dirt, granite, and brick. Next up we have cobblestone, tuff, and cobbled deep slate. Following that, diorite, calcite, white cement, and for the last one, coarse dirt, brown mushroom, and some spruce planks. As I said, I do think one of the most important things before starting a build is to set up your block palette. Next up is properly detailing a wall. In front of us here, we have a very plain wall that's just all stone with some stripped spruce on the outside, and it really doesn't do much. It gets the job done, but when you look at it, it's not very appealing. So next up, we're just gonna add some textures to the wall. Here, I added some andesite, gravel, and a little bit of glow lichen, which isn't necessary, but it's something I've really fallen in love with over the past little while. And just that can do so much to the wall. If you want to push it a little bit further, you can even add a little shutter on the outside. And right here is something I learned from the famous BOO is put some signs on the inside of the shutter. It makes it not look as flat just because there's that little bit of depth added from the signs. And for the window in the middle, maybe add some stone brick on the bottom and the top just to give it a little bit more structure. Or maybe you just want to add an awning. And here we have some campfires with some fences, and honestly, campfires are very expensive to use, but they do probably have the most detail. Or maybe you can add some coarse dirt to the bottom of the wall just because in real life, grass doesn't necessarily go directly up to the wall of a house. It's kind of dead around it just because the wall has killed the roots of it. I don't know if grass has roots though. I guess grass doesn't have roots, or maybe it does. I don't know. And pushing it a little bit further, I added some life around the wall. Obviously, we just talked about how things would be dead around the wall, but there would be some tall grass, maybe some lighting, some red candles. Well, not necessarily red candles, but just some lighting. I even used some leaves right here just because it adds more color. Part of the reason I used the candles. And then I used a little bit of pathway, especially because it looks more dead than the coarse dirt. Maybe you want to add some more depth to your wall, then push part of the wall back one more block like this. I think this is one of my favorite things to do to walls just because when you're far away, it looks so cool. Everything's still pretty much the exact same except that little part of the wall being pushed back. And I just used some upside down stairs and a slab to give it a little bit of an archway feeling. Using what we just learned, I built a little 5x5 house here. This thing is relatively plain besides the texturing on the walls, maybe the coarse dirt and some tall grass. And that roof, oh man, I hate it. So the first thing I would do is maybe add some walls to the corners. It can make your building look a little bit more round, and it also adds just a little overhang from the roof. I really like to do this on towers because towers don't necessarily look super round when you're building them, so adding the walls can just make it that little bit more round. Next up, to fix that roof issue that I hate so much, maybe add a little bit more pitch to your roof or a little bit more curve. And for this one, I did a full block there, a full block there, and then a half slab, a stair on top of that, an upside down stair facing towards me, and a slab on top. And then you just repeat it on the other side. I also like to set the inside blocks in one block and down one block just because it makes the roof's outside look like it's really overhanging. And you can even add some windows to it. All I did here was a stair, expand that slab one more, and then a trapdoor, and we have a window. So with all those things done, we're left with something that looks a little bit like this. Obviously, I changed some things like adding some trapdoors right here because I had to break up the deep slate and the brick and granite. Without it, the blocks contrast a little bit too much. I added a window on the side of the building with a shutter, and then that brings me on to my next tip, which is adding a chimney to your build. And right here are 3 chimneys I tend to use the most. The one I definitely use the most is the different height chimneys. So there's 2 campfires here, so we got 2 smoke columns going up, and one is 1 block higher just to add that detail, or maybe you just want to go with a freestanding chimney, and it still looks really nice. All you do here is place the campfire on the top block right there, and then you do some trapdoors around the outside, and place a slab above it. And maybe you need a castle chimney, well this one will fit perfectly. I like going from the block to the wall to the iron bar, it just adds a nice spike to the whole chimney. Next up is your pathways. First off, don't over bone meal your builds. It can make it look way too chaotic, like this side right here is over bone mealed, and when you look down the path, the grass almost interrupts the pathway too much. And it's too consistent when you walk through it and look at the side. Where this side is very open, maybe you can add a fence with a lantern on top of it just to add a little bit of lighting, or even some areas that go up maybe 1 block higher. Next up, don't have your pathways perfectly straight, and also don't overlight them. When you overlight your pathways, it really gets rid of the dramatic feel when you walk through them. And with Minecraft 1.18, we now have it so a light source can light up 8 blocks away from it. So if we got rid of that guy, these blocks still won't spawn mobs. So here we have a pathway that I put some curves into it, and I made sure not to overlight it or over bone meal it. And it can also really help not to clear out the land around it. It looks really nice when you have your pathway go 1 block higher with some stairs and slabs, and then have it drop back down. And remember, you don't have to just use path blocks. Like here is one of my favorite pathways to use in Minecraft. We have coarse dirt, brown cement powder, and some rooted dirt. When you have this running through your builds, it can really change up how they look. And on this path, I really made sure not to overlight the whole pathway. Like right here is definitely a darker spot. I don't think mobs can spawn here, but if they do, I mean, they gave you a sword, so might as well use it. If we look at the 3 pathways from a bird's eye view, I can definitely say the one on the far left is my favorite. Maybe some of you guys just like using path blocks, and you do you. I'm not gonna try changing that. This game is a sandbox game and is designed for you to be creative in your own ways. But definitely don't overlight or over bone meal your builds. Next up is planning out your builds before you actually build them. I've recently started using cobblestone to just go around the area that I'll be building in and just kind of lay out a template for what the buildings are gonna be and the size they're gonna be. It can really help you get an idea for how big you need to go or how small you need to go when building. Next up, we have some small things that you can lay around your village just to add a little bit of detail. Here we have a little carriage with a horse attached by a lead, and all I used for this carriage was some trapdoors, some fences, a little bit of barrel action, and even some wheat, or I mean hay bales. And here's some more small things you can add around your paths. They're pretty much just push carts, and this one just uses a gate, a cauldron, and a disenchanter, and this one is a gate and a hopper facing in to the disenchanter. Something I also like to use to fill up small gaps in the village that just don't have anything going on is maybe just do a little pen for some animals. And don't just use fences and gates around the whole thing, maybe add some walls to the corners or a little bit of hay bales out the front. Another thing you can add is some overgrown area. Here we just have some wheat, maybe some sugar cane, and some pumpkins in the back, and a cool thing you can actually do is place some candles on top of your pumpkins and it looks like a stem. And don't forget, you can place string over your bamboo, under your vines, or on top of your sugarcane to stop it from growing. And don't forget to light it up. Next up, we're going to be talking about bookshelves. Having a bunch of bookshelves right next to each other can look too consistent because the texture is all the same. So maybe if you turn a loom on its side, it has the exact same format of a bookshelf, but it just looks empty. So if you spread them around your library enough, it can look like there's some empty shelves that might be being restocked or have been emptied from people getting books. Jumping into my Let's Play world, we have a build that I completed last episode. Well, kinda. But the point of this tip is to build your buildings at different levels, especially if you're building multiple within an area. Here I built this tower lower than the actual building itself, and it looks really, really nice when you're walking down the pathway that goes in between the two. And also, when you're building things that are relatively tall, you can add a gradient to your building. So here I started with diorite and tuff at the bottom, which are both very, very textured blocks, and then slowly moved up to calcite, which is a lot smoother of a look. And from a little bit further back, it can look really, really cool. Just like how I added dirt in this tower. Normally, I would never do something like this because when I think of dirt in a building, I think of the first dirt house that you build the first time you ever play Minecraft. But honestly, it looks really, really good up against granite and brick. And I did the same thing here with starting with brick towards the bottom and then moving up towards granite at the top. And obviously a little bit of dirt like we just talked about. Next up, maybe add some custom trees to your builds. The normal Minecraft trees are pretty plain, so sometimes just building a custom tree right in the center of your village can change how the whole place looks. Recently, I built 11 of these trees, and let me say, it changed how the village looks entirely. Maybe you just want to add a little bit more color to your area. Add a little pond. Blue is not a color that shows up very often in Minecraft unless you're by an ocean, but if you're where I am, it's not often. So adding a little pond can really change up how an area looks. And you can even add some large stones around it by just using cobblestone, andesite, maybe a little bit of stone. I don't think I used any stone on these ones, but yeah, it looks really, really nice. And don't forget to splotch some flowers kind of around the whole village, whether it's around the pathway or just around big grass areas. Another cool thing that you can do is when you have a large building like this, or even a small one, maybe just add a little tower to go up the side. It can really split up how the skyline looks. And if you're building something industrial, maybe do some tubes with some trapdoors and stairs and slabs, just to make it look like the thing is actually coming to life. You can even add some fields with some 2-high flowers, which always looks great. On my left here, we have a rose field, and on my right here, we have a peony field. And together, they look really, really good. And also, if you're building a large village like I am, try to build the buildings all on different levels of terrain. I already spoke about that with the tower right there, but really try to do drastic changes like this. When you're building your mine in your survival world, don't just do a staircase going all the way down to -64. Maybe detail the top to make it look like a mine. Like here, I have a crane that looks like it drops all the way down. And if we hop in this minecart, we can go all the way down to -64 by jumping between 5 or 6 different minecarts that stop at each level that resources are good to mine at. But let's head back to the top. And the last thing we're going to talk about here is making your buildings useful. I used to build a ton of buildings that would never have anything important inside of them. And if you don't put anything important inside of the building, you're never really going to go visit it or go inside of it. So below us is my pumpkin and melon farm, which is automatic, and it brings the items to the top into our windmill. So now I always have a reason to come in here and kind of check it out and remember what I built. Over here is my apiary, and below it is a honeycomb farm, and the chest is right here to collect all the honey foam. But I haven't stepped foot in the apiary really since I built it. And that's because the collection system is outside of it. So with that being said, I definitely need to put the collection system within here. And it's really cool to come in here sometimes because sometimes there'll be bees flying around, like that one right there. So with that all being said, I hope you guys enjoyed the tips and tricks that I've learned over the past couple years. I'm sure there's a million more I can show you guys. And if you guys enjoyed this video, maybe just leave a comment down below if you want to see more. Maybe hit that like and subscribe button. And if you're feeling extra nice today, hit that notification bell. But thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time. See you later, alligator.